was doing a lot of writing when I was in school, and I'd set my heart on journalism. In those days, we finished school at 16, and I had joined a course in journalism in the gap between school and college. And when I was doing that course, there was this gentleman called Sita Ramaya who taught us press law. So freedom of speech, Ramesh Thapar's case. He was such a fine teacher. The Constitution came alive in his classes, and I felt the beginnings of an interest in law. Then I joined college, St. Stephen's. I studied economics, mainly with the idea of becoming a journalist, because I thought economics would be a good core subject to study. Sometime in my second year of college, which means I was between 17 and 18, Keshavananda Bharati's case had started in the Supreme Court. In those days, the standards of legal reporting were very, very high. So as a boy of 17 or 18, I could understand the arguments of Mr. Palkhiwala as reported in the Times of India. And so I became curious and interested, and I started attending the hearings in the Keshavananda Bharati case. Fortunately, humanities courses, the classes used to get over before lunch. So after lunch, I'd come and sit in the visitors gallery and hear arguments. The first lawyer I ever heard in my life was Palkhiwala.
Wow.
The second lawyer I heard was Sirvai. The first bench I saw was a bench of 13 judges.
The full strength at that time.
That's right. No, there was one judge who was not on this bench with two ad hoc judges.
Okay.
So there was a bench of three, which was hearing other cases.
Okay.
And so by the time I had finished my 3 years of economics, I knew which way I wanted to go, much to the consternation of my parents. I come from a railway family. My father, my late grandfather, several uncles were all railway officers. My mother was a science teacher. My sister today is a professor of architecture. So they are all science people. I was the only humanities person in the family. First I shocked them with the idea of becoming a journalist. Then I shocked them with my change of idea, change in ambition, wanting to become a lawyer.
At a time when law wasn't particularly popular, I would imagine.
Law was not an attractive option at all. It wasn't popular. It was believed that only those who came from legal families could make it in the profession.
And you didn't. You didn't come from such a background.
I didn't come from such a background. But of course, they allowed me to take the final plunge only because I had an uncle in the Supreme Court who himself was a doctor's son.
Right.
He was a communist. He had taken part in the Quit India movement also. though communists were otherwise opposed to the Quit India movement, as is commonly believed. And he had set up practice in the Supreme Court with the late R.K. Garg and Justice S.C. Agarwal. They had made a mark in the Supreme Court as young lawyers in a court which was dominated by the likes of Setalwad, Daftari and Vishwanath Shastri. So I joined the chambers of Mr. Ramamurthy, worked briefly with him for about a year and a half. And then I wanted to gain experience with an advocate on record. I joined Mr. S.K. Dholakia, who at that time was an advocate on record. Gained experience for some time in his office and then became independent.
But was there any trepidation? Was it just watching the boom of affairs and Keshwananda that just swung you, or were you nervous somewhat of plunging yourself into this profession?
I think when you are young and you are seized, when an idea catches hold of you, you don't think of so many things which you may start thinking of when you are older, when you start having responsibilities.
Right.
At that time it was just the pursuit of a dream. And so I just felt that I had it in me to make it in the profession, and I went ahead.